Welcome to the Running Network Show. Join us each time as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great sport.
This is Don Kern on the shores of Lago Maggiore. I'm at the north border of Italy and Switzerland, right in the south of Switzerland, in Locarno. This is the site of the second marathon of my 7 continents quest. I'll be running starting in Ticino, which is over on the other side of the lake, way over there, and we'll be running double loop coming up here from along the edge of the lake through Locarno, circling around and headed back, and then we'll do the same thing again. It's a pretty flat course in spite of the fact that we're nestled in the mountains. Everywhere around us is mountains. In fact, the hotel I'm staying at is way up the hill up there at the Hotel della Valle. It's quite a little hike to get down here, but I found staircases all the way down. A lot of good stonework, a lot of beautiful, beautiful buildings, old and new combined. But everyone builds things with stones here. It's pretty obvious that we're right in the middle of the mountains, and so there's lots of stones available.
Marathon Don Kern comes by running relatively late in life at age 39, but he seems to have picked up with a lot of enthusiasm. Now at age 55, that would be 16 years, I guess. He is making his third attempt to set a Guinness World Record for running on 7 continents in the fewest days. Don, where are we right now?
Well, right now the attempt is set up for 24 days, a little over 24 days actually, probably 24 days and 12 hours if I get everything in on schedule, assuming Antarctica goes according to schedule. Right now I'm in the middle of it. I've done 2 marathons. I ran in Soweto, South Africa on Sunday a week and a half ago, and I ran in Ticino, Switzerland just this last Sunday. I'm in the Ticino area of Switzerland. Everything seems really expensive there, but I was only going to be there for the week and I was going to enjoy it. But I found out living up on the mountain that it was, I figured out pretty quickly I had to find a cheaper way to get down. But the guy at the hotel was very helpful, hooked me up with a bus pass, showed me where the bus was, which was only about 300 yards from the hotel. But I set out the first morning and actually just walked down to town, and that was just a beautiful thing. Instead of taking the switchbacks that the cars take, I ended up taking a series of staircases that go all the way down the mountain and all the way down to the lake. It was just beautiful. We were right on the shores of Lago Maggiore, which is Lake Maggiore, which is only about 10 miles from the Italian border. So I'm in an Italian-speaking region of the area. I wasn't able to communicate very well, although I was able to eat and get a beer when I needed one. Say hello to the people back in the United States. I picked up my race packet at the Ticino Sports Center, and on my way back on the bus, I ran into a couple of guys that were getting on the bus trying to figure out how to get to Brioni, which happens to be where my hotel was. And he had a little communication problem. He spoke Swiss German, and most of the people down where I was were speaking Swiss Italian. And so, but he said he was going to Brioni, and that's where my hotel was. And I said, you know what, I could probably help you get there, because he mentioned the Hotel della Valle. Come to find out, he's staying the same place I am. So I helped out Stefan and his buddy Michael, helped him get back to the hotel, transfer the right buses and everything, and we got up there. Got them checked in. We made arrangements to eat together about 7 o'clock with another couple that we met that were just checking in who happened to speak English. Had a really nice meal, the 3 of us together, the 5 of us together. And next morning we got up. We all rode down to the race site together in the guy's car. And Will actually drove all of us down to the race site. Well, that was the last time I would see Stefan until quite a bit later. But Zara and I got together at the starting line, ran into each other, and talked for a minute. The race started out, it was a double loop, and we started out going kind of in a southeasterly direction and did a big loop about 10K before we got back to the near the stadium. And then it made a nice loop up into town, through along the side of the lake, but up onto the roadways, and over to Locarno. And then we made a loop around Locarno. At the far end, we were at about 15K out of the 21 for the first loop. And then we went right down to the lake. And so from 16K on to 21, about the last 5K, was a nice run right along the edge of Lake Maggiore. Beautiful run the whole time. The course would take us on to the finish line, which is actually right where we started. And for the second loop, I had to run through the finish line and then start the second loop and run the whole thing over again. Well, the thing is, after the first loop, while we were out on the first loop, we had 3 different waves of half marathoners come along behind us. So I was running with people the whole time, and I didn't know who was running what race. But as soon as I started the second loop, I was all by myself, fighting my way through a bunch of pedestrian traffic and trying to figure out where the course went. And in spite of the fact I'd gone through before, I was with a whole bunch of people the first time, so I didn't really notice everything I probably should have on the way through. So I was trying to figure out how the course went, and a little ways into the first kilometer, I actually made a wrong turn. And I went a little ways, and I finally said, this isn't right. And I turned around and went back to the corner and tried to communicate with people, I'm still in the race, and can you tell me where the race course goes? And of course, not speaking any Italian and them not understanding me, it was really difficult to finally figure out, yes, the course actually went a different direction than I started out in. So I got going, and I went a little ways down the road, and I come over this bridge, and I didn't remember that from the first time either. And so I kind of turned around and stopped and wondered what was going on, and I saw a couple girls running up the hill and over the bridge, and I finally communicated with them that, am I on the marathon course? And they were able to tell me that I was. And as soon as I crested the bridge and went a little farther, I saw a sign that said, yes, you're on the marathon course. Well, I continued on, but I had crossed the halfway mark in about 2:17, so I had lots of leeway. We were on a 5-hour time limit, but I was thinking, yeah, I've got lots of time for this. Well, in the first kilometer of the second half, I had blown away about 4 minutes of my time. So I was feeling a little bit like I'm just going to have to push the whole time in order to keep it under 5 hours for this. And I haven't had too many 5-hour marathons this year yet. So I thought I was in shape for it, but geez, that extra 4 minutes had me a little bit nervous. Well, about 1.5 kilometers into the second loop, all of a sudden there was a kid right behind me on a bicycle, and he was riding really slow, right on my heels almost, or at least it seemed like it. And he was kind of bugging me a little bit, and finally I turned around and, well, come to find out, he had a sign on the front of his bike saying he was with the race. So he was actually out there escorting me, making sure I stayed on course the whole time. The kid stayed with me the whole rest of the race. And I knew I had to keep pushing it. I stayed right on pace. I did pretty good. Got around the first loop. I've got 10K into it, and now I'm starting toward Locarno. And I kept going over there, and I was feeling good. I kept doing the math on every kilometer, figuring out, okay, if I can run only just this fast. And I was staying ahead of it. I was staying ahead of the 5-hour pace. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Kept going, finally got down to the far end turn at about 15K into the second loop, and then headed down toward the lake. And by this time we were in pedestrian traffic, and I had managed to find out from the kids' conversations with other people that I was the last person in the race, in spite of the fact I was still well under the time limit. So he stayed with me, kind of irritated me a little bit because he kept weaving in and out. We're trying to get around pedestrians and so on, and then having a bicycle to try to dodge while you're doing this was getting a little irritating now and then, but it was reassuring that I at least had somebody keeping me on course. We worked our way around the lake. I was at 38K, 39K. Getting close, I knew I was in familiar territory because I had walked along the lake 2 or 3 times during the course of the time I was there. And I kept running along, and finally I get to the final kilometer, and we make the turn into the sports complex, and there's the 42K mark, and I can see the finish line. I crossed the finish line in 4 hours, 56 minutes, and a few seconds. Got a little bit recovered, and I went in, and I saw Michael sitting there, Stefan's friend, and we talked a little bit, and he said, Stefan won. I said, wow, this is pretty neat. And so I look around, and Stefan is up on the stage getting his award for being the overall winner of the race. So it turns out I was also the last person to finish the race, which means that the guy in first place and the guy in last place ended up eating dinner together the night before the marathon. I thought that was an interesting twist. Anyway, now I've got 2 marathons in the bank. I've finished Africa. I've finished Europe. Still feeling good. Still looking forward to the next 5, but it's going to be a very intense couple of weeks. This is Don Kern for the Running Network and Michigan Runner.